welcome back to Life of Liz. So, do you want to be an expat? Do you want to learn about being an expat? Maybe you're on the brink of making your own decision. So I'm going to tell you the top 10 things you need to think about before you embark on your journey. Firstly, I will say if you get the opportunity to go abroad, then take it, because it's an amazing opportunity. You probably won't get another chance like this, and you'll probably regret it if you turn down an opportunity to live abroad. I know myself and my brother, who's in Japan, are really enjoying our experiences, and we feel so grateful that we've had the opportunity to live on the other side of the world. Honestly, I'm kind of sad knowing that I'll be leaving in July, but after my masters, hopefully I'll come back out here or somewhere else. I mean, we'll see. I thought I would do this video because this is my first time living abroad by myself. I've lived in the Netherlands and Jakarta, but I was a kid, so my parents did everything. I didn't really know about things that you really should think about, and now that I am here alone, I've learnt a lot, and I realise things are important that you need to know. So the first thing to think about is the simple things that you enjoy and your home comforts, because some countries you move to, for example, you may not be able to drive, and there might not be open spaces to walk in, and that's going to affect your mental health and well-being. So I would think about that definitely. When I first moved to Indonesia, I just passed my driving test. I was 17, I was used to driving by myself, and then suddenly I couldn't drive anywhere. I had to have a driver or take taxis, and even then the taxis weren't that safe. So it was all dependent on when the driver was available, and there was no sidewalk, so I couldn't walk very much. So I think that really impacted my life. Just being able to walk and exercise as well, that was really impacted. Here in Yangon, there are some parks, but they've been shut for a while now because of COVID, and they're shut till the end of January. And it does make me miss my home in London, where there's lots of parks and open spaces and you're allowed to walk. So I think about that and base your decision where you're going on that, and see the area, see what there is, see what you can do, because it honestly makes a big difference. Number 2, realise that holiday and living somewhere is completely different. When we first went to Indonesia, it was on holiday for 2 weeks, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, I'm gonna love it here. But of course we were staying in a nice hotel, we had room service, we had nice restaurants. My parents wanted to big up the area, so we did amazing things. And then when I moved there, obviously it was very different, because you have to go to work, school, normal life, no fancy things, fun things to do. So if you want to move somewhere and you've already been there on holiday and you think you would love it, then realise that it's going to be different. I'd actually been on holiday to Yangon, and that was pre-COVID, so obviously it was very different. But I knew, after my experience in Jakarta, I knew what living there would be like, and I'm actually enjoying it here. But think about that first, and think about it carefully. 3 is your healthcare. Coming from the UK, you have the NHS, thank you. And obviously it's really easy to make an appointment. You go, if you need a test, they refer you, and there's pros and cons to that, because referral can take a long time, but then it's free, it's the NHS, so that's amazing. And moving abroad, you will most likely have to pay for healthcare, so you have to think about if your job offers it, and if not, how much it costs, and the quality of healthcare, because here, obviously in Yangon, if you go to a public hospital, the quality isn't that great, the facilities aren't good. Whereas if you go to a private hospital, more tailored to expats, then it's good, but it's very expensive. So you've got to think about that, and think about what would happen if something went wrong, if you had an emergency. I know that in Indonesia, if you have an emergency, you have to either pay up front or show your insurance card and get pre-authorization. Otherwise they won't treat you, which is crazy. So you need to think about that. I've heard of people who have actually died because they couldn't pay for their treatment up front, so that's really scary. But here I have health insurance covered by my employer, so it's great, and I've used it a lot, as you might have seen in my other videos. So it's been, yeah, great. If I didn't have insurance, I would be bankrupt by now, because it's ended up costing a lot of money. My paycheck wouldn't have covered it, basically. So definitely think about that. Think about that if you've got kids, or your wife or husband coming, partner. That's a big one. Definitely research that before you go. And also know where foreigners can go, because there's certain hospitals that foreigners can't go to. So yeah, figure all that out, basically. 4 is the language barrier. Going to a country where the language is so different to your own, it can often make you feel left out. And you can try and learn the language, obviously that's great. I haven't learnt much because I'm only here for 6 more months. But I do find it difficult meeting new people if they're Myanmar. I've made some friends and they do speak pretty good English. But even like in shops, when the shopkeepers or hospitals and nurses are all speaking blah, 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 blah really quickly, and you're just the only one who speaks English in the room, and it's quite awkward. I found that in hospital, I just felt a bit awkward and left out and sad because I couldn't understand anything. And in massage parlours when they're talking, you just want to know what they're saying. I like being in hospital in England because I love overhearing people or just hear what the nurses say, gossip. But here you can't understand anything, so you need to think about if that's going to make you feel low or how you can get by. Also, I've been to visit China, for example, and all the signs are in Chinese, and if I did not have a tour guide, I would get so lost. So think about how accessible everything is, if you'll be able to understand and make your way around. I know there's apps now that you scan and it translates to English, which is amazing. But it's more people speaking, and here in Myanmar they speak so quickly, I'd have no idea. And then when people are talking, smiling, pointing at you, and it's like, oh, they're talking about me, I wish I knew what they were saying. Well, I probably don't want to know what they're saying, but you know what I mean. So think about the language barrier, how it's going to make you feel, and I would probably recommend learning key phrases and sentences that you're going to need before you go. I did that for Indonesia and it was really helpful, especially in taxis. Number 5 is your career path. If you are moving for a certain career, think about if you can progress and the laws in that country. Obviously there's a lot of jobs abroad where you can't work, like doctors and nurses can't work over here. Pilots, I don't think can, etc. And a lot of people move abroad when they're younger to teach English for kids or business, and is there much progression in that? So think about if it's a short-term thing for you or a long-term goal and where you can progress. For me, I came here knowing I would only be here for a year or two just to get experience in a developing country, so I wasn't thinking about career progression, but some people might. You might want to see how salaries go up and long-term if this place is going to be right for you. 6 is taxes in that country. Obviously I've only worked in the UK and I only know about taxes in the UK. Here I don't know anything because I think my employer pays it or there is no tax. It's really confusing. So you should definitely look up what percentage, because there might be a big leap between countries. I know in the Netherlands it's low and it's great, whereas in England there's that big discrepancies. So look that up, try and figure it out, work out how much of your pay is going to go into tax. If you need to sort it out, fill in paperwork. I'm saying this, but I literally have no idea. I've never had to sort out my tax, so when the time comes, wish me luck. 7 is also to do with money, and you want to think about the difference in salary and the price and cost of living. Obviously if you're going to a lower cost of living area like Yangon, your salary will probably be lower. Mine is for my job, it's probably the same. It's in dollars, so it is less, but it works out the same with my apartment. But I know some jobs will obviously be a lower pay, but then you need to factor in how much is my rent going to cost, how much is everything else going to cost. And here you don't need a higher salary because everything's so much cheaper than the UK, for example. But think about that when you come and think about, is the money you get worth it? There are some jobs where you can get a really high salary here, and I think they're growing because Myanmar is developing quite quickly. That's another thing to think about. 8 is kind of relating to the language barrier and the fact that you might not ever feel completely at home, and you need to realise that no matter how much you integrate into society yourself, you'll never be seen as one in the society. It depends which country you're living in or moving to, but for me, I would never fit in as Myanmar, and you'll just always probably miss home a little bit because it just won't feel the same. And customs are different, traditions are different. I would try and learn about all the customs and traditions and see how it's different for where you live now. I would say around Christmas, they don't celebrate Christmas here, and that made me feel quite homesick. It just wasn't the same. But obviously you're going to expect that moving somewhere else, you have to try and fit into their way of life. And talking about not feeling at home, this is a separate note, but before you do move abroad, make sure you bring as many things as you can that will make you feel at home, especially food items. In Myanmar, as you would think, it's really difficult to find certain things, and when I receive packages from home, it just makes me feel so happy and like eating food that I remember and Seeing things that I remember is really important. So think about that before you move, and think about plugs and what you're going to need, because in the beginning it's going to be hard to find which things you can get from which shops and where you can order things and all of that. So do some research. Number 9 is if you want to start a family abroad, you've got to think about that. You've got to think about, obviously, if you do have a baby, where the baby's going to be born. If you're going to get married, where will you officiate your wedding? Schools. If you bring your family with you, think about schools. I have to say there are some amazing international schools all around the world. When I was in Jakarta, there was an Australian school, a French school, obviously the British school I went to, an American school, and then an international school. I don't know the difference between the American and the international school. Did I say Dutch? Chinese? There was so many international schools, it's quite overwhelming. We obviously went to the British school because we were older, we had certain exams we needed to do, and different schools do different exam systems. So it's IB, GCSE, A-level. So yeah, think about that, and there'll be somewhere for you to go. But also think about what your kids need. If they're younger, I feel like kids can fit in most places, but as they're older, think about their independence, their freedom. What is there for them to do there? Can they get around? Will they be able to make friends? Think about all that, because it's really important for your kids to feel settled and safe in their new home. And number 10, final thing to think about, is if you do need to quickly go back home for whatever reason, how easy can it be done? If there's an emergency like COVID, how easy will it be for you to get home if you lose your job, etc.? Where are you going to move if you have to go back home suddenly? This happened with us. We had to go home. Our house was rented, so we couldn't move back into the home. We had to live with our grandma. And you just got to think about things that can happen. If someone dies at home, sadly, hopefully that won't happen, but can you get back quickly? How far away is your new country? What's the cost of getting home? All those kind of things. It's COVID now, and our company arranged emergency relief flights back that they paid for, but some companies might not pay for that, and you might be stuck in your country. So just think about those things, especially now that we've gone through COVID, we've learned a lot. You've got to think about all that. Okay, so that's my top 10 things to think about. I'm going to link in some amazing expat pages that have so much information about any country that you're going to move to. And if you go on Facebook and type in the country, the city you're going to, so like Lisbon expat, loads of groups I'm sure will come up. For Yangon, there's like 5-6 expat groups that are really, really popping. There's so much stuff on there. So yeah, I hope you found this video informative, and if you have any questions about expat life, if you are thinking of going anywhere, then let me know, and just comment, ask away, ask anything. Thank you guys for watching. Bye!